Brought to you by CH Studios, creating content that connects.
Welcome back to another episode of the Upfront podcast where we talk matters, politics, and governance. Remember, for those people who've not hit that subscription button, hit the subscription button and, of course, the notification bell so that you are informed anytime we drop a new episode. On today's segment, we want to assess the current state of politics, but in particular, we ask one simple question. Is President William Ruto's talk of a first world campaign or a first world a campaign mimic or a fantasy? This conversation comes at an opportune time when the president just recently gave his State of the Nation address, and we'll be looking and touching onto issues that were presented right there. To help me delve deeper into this conversation, I'm joined by a gentleman who's known to many. Not a new face, of course. He's practically led all the major newsrooms in the country right here. He goes by the name Mr. Peter Opondo. Currently, he serves at the Executive Office of the President as the President's speech writer. Peter, thank you for making time for us. Let's just get into this. But I want us to begin by understanding the mood of the country. Mm-hmm. And when you look at how the Kenyan politics is sort of contextualized, we've only had, in my own understanding, 2 campaigns that had such an immense wave that couldn't be distorted by any sort of financial muscle, tribalism, political rhetoric, and that was in 2002 and 2022. President William Ruto ran a stellar campaign, basically getting into office as the people's darling. 4 years into his administration, do you think we are looking at a situation where we have a silent majority who still believe President William Ruto is the right man for the job, or he lost the people?
So first of all, I think that political campaigns are always the same. Mm-hmm. The issue of contestations is a matter of perception.
Yeah,
it is a democracy. I mean, if you look at the last general election, people say that President William Ruto was a darling of voters. Mm-hmm. But the outcome of the election was clearly showed that the country was nearly almost split into 2 halves. Yeah. So it is not true that it was one-sided, mm-hmm. as you're trying to suggest. Mm-hmm. And that is the essence of democracy. All elections are, in a democracy, are a contest. And you always hope that the team with the best ideas carry the day. Mm-hmm. So that's what happened with President William Ruto in 2022. And hopefully is what will happen in 2027.
Okay, let's look at the last bit of that question where he lost the people. Now, we have a majority of Kenyans, especially guided by the opposition, who believe President William Ruto has lost the people. Mm-hmm. Let me date this back to 2023 when we had the first Gen Z demonstrations. And I believe it happened on the same day we were having the AU meeting somewhere in Naivasha, and the AU officials were in town. Mm-hmm. The president came back to the country and gave an address that evening.
Yes.
A lot of misinterpretations were taken from that particular address. And one of the lines or the words used there did not necessarily sit too well with the majority of people. The president called the people who were out there on the streets as treasonous. As I said earlier on, there were a lot of misinterpretations. Mm-hmm. Do you think this is the point? The president lost the people, and this is where everything sort of started going wrong as is perceived?
So first of all, I don't think it's accurate to say that the president has lost the people.
Okay.
We have nothing objective so far to tell us that the president has lost the people. But then going back to that statement that night, as you correctly say, it was a misinterpretation.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
The president noted the genuine concerns by the young people of Kenya on that day to express their concerns about the finance bill. But he also noted that these particular protests or picketing had been infiltrated by criminal elements, which is a fact. And by going to burn down parliament, that is what he described as treasonous. The protest by the young people of this country was never treasonous. It was a legitimate expression of their concerns about the finance bill.
Yeah.
So when the president noted, it is true that there were criminal elements that infiltrated those protests, and they were up to something that was much more than just the protests. Of course, when we look back, we ask ourselves, if you disagree with your government, do you have the right to go and, let's say, ban parliament and ban everything that you'll come across? Probably not. But people have a right to express their discontent, but in a peaceful manner, as provided by in the laws of the country, as provided for in the Constitution. So it is not true that the president described the young people of this country as criminals. What the president was expressing was a concern that these genuine protests by the young people of Kenya had been infiltrated by criminal elements.
There's been a downward spiral from that particular day in terms of how people perceive this administration. I don't think there's a single day on our social media or on our news that we're not necessarily getting people who are pissed, who are saying one thing that is wrong with this administration. And when you look at that, that core element of ensuring the president's image is kept intact basically falls on the PR team and the people who are supposed to handle that. Kenyans might not necessarily know that that wasn't the case, but that has been left to go on up until today. Do you think there's a deficit in the president's PR team in terms of ensuring that they tell the people this is the case, this is not the case?
I mean, we need to understand how democracy works. If you've been in this country, and I will not take you very far back, if you've been in this country since 2002, in the first 5 years of Kibaki, there was so much noise in this country. There were headlines every single day describing Kibaki in all manner of ways that were not flattering. If you were here under the Uhuru presidency, all the 10 years that Uhuru was the president of this country, the issues were the same. That is just democracy. So the fact that people are expressing concerns every single day about the government is in and of itself not a new thing. It is part and parcel of democracy. It comes with the territory. Now, what we should be asking ourselves is, if we can pick specific issues that people are raising and ask ourselves, are they being addressed? Is the government responding to those issues that are pressing to the people? That is the measure with which you judge. I think the people say, and it's true, you can't spin your way out of if you call it bad governance or whatever it is. So the president is doing his work, the government is doing its work, but people are free to express their concerns, and that is not a new thing. At the end of the day, when we go to the election next year, the people will pass a judgment on the performance of the government, and that's when we will have a first objective judgment or expression of the people's will on how the government performed over the last 5 years.
Well, it's a good thing. You've mentioned that what needs to happen is we need to pick what the people are complaining about and ask ourselves, is the government doing this? The head of state gave his State of the Nation address, and as expected, he invoked the name Singapore and basically just talking about where we need to head to as a country.
Yes.
What we need to be cognizant of is that Singapore's transformation is pegged on two key pillars. That was zero tolerance for corruption, and secondly, efficient public service delivery. Those are the two pillars that transformation is premised upon. Let's come back to Kenya. When you're looking at Kenya, every other single day we're looking at corruption issues. Yes, we understand the wheels of justice are extremely slow, but the Kenyans want to see results. Is this administration intentional about dealing with corruption? Because that's one thing Kenyans are not convinced that this administration is intentional about. How do you answer to that?
The issue of corruption has been with us even during the Moi days, during the Kibaki days. When did Anglo-leasing happen? When was it coming about? It was during the Kibaki years, right?
Back in 2005,
Yes, so 2005, Moi Kibaki was the president of this country. So corruption is deeper. However, you have to look at the efforts that are being put there to end corruption. You have to ask yourself, has the Anti-Corruption Commission been empowered sufficiently to tackle corruption? What do you think the president should do to end corruption? Because Do you want the president to do the work of the Anti-Corruption Commission? The laws have been passed. The laws are there to fight corruption. So what we should be pointing out, what are the agencies that are supposed to fight corruption doing? Because you can't put everything. Because if you're asking me that the president has to handle every case of corruption, then maybe we are talking about something different.
Peter, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying the president should do that.
Yes.
What I'm asking here is we are making reference to a country known as Singapore. That's where you want to take Kenyans.
Yes.
And I've talked about those two pillars.
Maybe let me explain that. I didn't mean that corruption is more of a cultural problem for our country.
Yes.
And if it's a cultural problem, it means we need to have a deeper conversation as a country on how to end this menace.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that corruption will remain a problem even for the next government. Now, back to the example of Singapore.
Yes.
I like the way people cherry pick their explanation of how Singapore transformed itself. And they say efficient government, and the fight against corruption, zero tolerance to corruption.
Yes.
I'll tell you what, there were more that Singapore transformed itself for more reasons than that. And in fact, the main reason why Singapore transformed, it's because they opened up the economy and created opportunities for their people. What Singapore did, number one of the things that Lee Kuan Yew did was that he invited corporates from America to come and set up base in Singapore, right? Singapore was the first country to establish what are they called? Promotion zones, right? Where you have foreign companies coming and set up base in your country. What did these companies do? Number one, they produced their products there. They added value, and they exported these products to the rest of the world. Yeah. The other thing that they did is that there was passing on of skills to locals. Yeah. So when the economy was growing, as the middle class was growing, the governance was improving as a result. So I hold the view that if we were to focus on our economy, to grow opportunities for our people, the middle class that will come from it will demand proper governance. There will be heightened demand for proper governance. And there's a debate all over the world today. Which one comes first? Governance and politics and democracy, or the economy? And I believe the economy is the tide that lifts all boats. I'm not saying we should not fight corruption. These things go together. But our biggest problem in this country today, as we were speaking earlier on, is opportunity for our young people. The reason why we have these problems like Goonism and all those kind of things is because people are not engaged. So our biggest problem today is actually opportunity for our young people. So the efforts of the government for the last 4 years were first to bring back the economy from the brink. Remember, we were just coming from the COVID disruption, to bring it back to from the brink, and then stabilize it. Now the president is asking, where should we go? The only way to create opportunities for our young people is to accelerate the growth of our economy, to expansion of opportunities for our young people, so that even the people you're calling goons do not have opportunity to be misused by politicians, because they will be engaged every single day.
Okay. You've talked of doing this hand in hand, growing the economy, and of course still finding avenues to fight corruption.
Yes.
Now, a big part of this is handled by institutions.
Yes.
As we were talking earlier on, democracy. We exist in a democracy. So institutions have been empowered to carry out their mandate.
Yes.
Let's make reference to what the former CS for Treasury said. He made a very bold pronouncement and said the reason as to why we don't have a lot of things moving in this country is because the current head of state, President William Ruto, overruns institutions. So when you're having a president who's overrunning institutions, and therefore that clearly means that these institutions are not fully empowered to do their job, because they're basically operating under somebody's guidance.
But why?
How do you respond to that? Then how then can this work?
But how do you take his comments for the gospel truth?
No, we're just interrogating it because he's an immediate CS
Yes.
who served in this administration.
And
We're trying to just interrogate that.
everyone,
Yeah.
when you're working with people,
Yeah.
everyone comes up with their own conclusion, perception
Yes.
on how things should work. But leadership is contextual.
Okay.
Now, people say, people like Ndungu says that probably the president overruns institutions and all those kind of things.
Yeah.
I don't think we've gotten to that level. He's probably somebody who wanted something and did not get it and therefore felt that the president was standing in their way. What I would say is this. From my understanding, we have a president who's hands-on. There's a difference between being hands-on and meddling in the affairs of a ministry. If the president, first of all, the government is in and of itself a bureaucracy. Now, a bureaucracy operates with a mind of its own, right? So if you want to achieve your objectives as a president, you have to follow up. Now, following up means you're following up with calls, you're following up with meetings. You want to understand, I promised Kenyans that I will deliver the following. Where is it? Now, if you're doing that, is that overrunning institutions? Because if Ndungu was saying that the president has stopped the Anti-Corruption Commission from prosecuting a particular case, and he names the case, then we would have something to discuss. But those are generalities. If somebody came and said today that I wanted to do the following as the Minister of the National Treasury, and the president stopped me, or the Anti-Corruption Commission, it was to prosecute so-and-so, and the president somehow influenced or interfered with the investigations, then we would be having an objective conversation. What we are doing here is he said, she said, and usually that is a matter of whatever everybody wants to say. We cannot base matters of governance on conversations that are made with people who have no skin in the game. You see, the president has to ensure that he fulfills his mandate. The people who are saying all these things, they are out there. They were serving in government, some of them. They've left the government. So it is an opportune moment for them to sort of try and get back. But you see, that does not matter at the end of the day. The president has a responsibility. He will go back to voters next year to ask for their vote again. At that point, he'll be telling the voters, this is what I did with the mandate that you gave me. And I think if the president is hands-on to ensure that whatever he promised Kenyans is delivered, that cannot be said to be overrunning institutions. And then I mean, I have to emphasize this. Leadership is contextual. I remember in 2005, 2006, the complaint was the opposite. Mwai Kibaki was our president then. And I remember members of parliament were holding a news conference in parliament. And I remember Uhuru, who became later a president, banging tables, saying, we have a president who sees nothing, who does nothing, who can't do anything. The complaint was Kibaki was aloof. Today, the complaint is William Ruto is so much hands-on that he's suffocating us. Let me tell you, if the president does not break the law, if the president ensures that he delivers on his mandate, then it doesn't matter how he does it, because
so it's at all cost.
Not at all costs. I've mentioned two things. As long as he doesn't break the law, and as long as he ensures that he fulfills the mandate of the people, then it doesn't matter, because leadership is contextual. I mean, you have to understand your context. You want to get these things done. Sometimes the bureaucracy is slow. You want to push certain things to happen, and people are not just moving at glacial space. You want to make sure it happens. So if that happens, then so be it.
Let me ask you personally, and just not necessarily specific to the head of state. When you're looking at governance or in an institution or a country, delegation plays a key role in the overall achievement of the overall goal. Now, in your own capacity, say, Peter, you are the CS of water. And you have the expertise, you have the skills to run the ministry, and you know what works best. But constantly, your decisions are being sort of put aside because instructions are coming from above. Just looking at that situation, and if that possibly is the thing, do you believe such an environment works against the overall goal, or still, even when you exist in that government, still the goal can be achieved?
So, first of all, let me correct you. It is not true that instructions come from above.
That was what just the CS was alluding to.
Yeah,
So
but you see, I have already told you, you cannot use his claims as the gospel.
Yes,
truth.
for sure, for most definitely.
So, and you still keep using his remarks as if they were the truth. I don't.
No, we're just painting a different scenario.
correct.
So that yes, we are painting a different. That's why I said away from.
So now let me come back to it.
Yes.
It is not true that instructions come from above.
Okay.
That is politics.
Yes.
It is true that any policy, any government policy goes through the normal process. It ends up in the cabinet and it's approved by the cabinet, which the cabinet meets as late as last week, but when they met, they approve whatever they approve, and then it goes to implementation. So it is not true that the president has imposed. So let me give you an example, for example.
Yeah.
This government had in its manifesto the Sovereign Wealth Fund and the National Infrastructure Fund, right? Yeah. People associated with the president, true. But these things went through the normal process, approved by cabinet, parliament, and all those things. So where you get this idea that instructions come from above, that's politics.
Okay.
That's politics. And unless you can point to something very specific where the president is supposed to have made a call and things didn't go as they were supposed to go, but we can't talk about hearsay. I've just given you National Infrastructure Fund and Sovereign Wealth Fund.
Yeah.
Can you point out where these things came as an instruction from above? People will claim these things went through the normal process, cabinet approved, they went to parliament, approved, and all the boxes were ticked, and they are established today. So when people claim that probably they were overrun by the president, for me, I see it, especially now that they are not in government. I wish they were saying this when they were in government, because if they were in government, then we could say maybe. They are not in government today. So is it a case of sour grapes? I don't know.
All right.
Is it a case of trying to score political points? I don't know. But I cannot use that as a basis to conclude that institutions are being overrun by one president. If a leader has strong personality, strong presence, I think that's a good thing. Do you want a weak leader? Do you want a weak president who is a pushover? I don't think I want that kind of a person to be my president. I want someone who stands up for something, somebody who leads from the front, and that is what President William Ruto has been doing, and I think he will continue doing. Yeah. And that is why he's able to make certain decisions that sometimes are uncomfortable to many people. He's always mentioned that people were telling him some of these things you can postpone to your second term so that at that point you're not seeking re-election. But he says we can't postpone reforms on health. Yeah. We can't postpone reforms on the economy. We can't postpone reforms housing. We can't postpone every sector. He's made some of those very consequential decisions in his first 2, 3, 4 years. And I am sure the outcomes will be very evident in the coming months, in the coming years.
Okay. Let's talk about the economy that you were talking about in terms of the head of state and this administration being very intentional towards inviting investors into the country so that more opportunities can be brought about. Because you've mentioned very well our biggest problem is the lack of opportunities, especially for the young people.
Yes.
I don't necessarily have the exact numbers, but we've had from publications and people saying we've had a number of businesses shut down, some international ones exiting this jurisdiction and probably shifting their operations to other countries. Now, when you're looking at that, that boils down to one thing. It means there is an inconsistency in the taxing regime of the country. And there's been a lot of complaints, especially from business experts, that we're looking at a very inconsistent sort of taxing regime, especially that does not align with the national tax policy. How has the president handled this, and can you convince Kenyans that the administration is intentional about this? Because if we cannot have a clear taxing regime, then that goal is like walking 2 steps forward and taking 20 back.
You know, what I would encourage you to do
Yeah.
is to try and get an objective way of assessing the performance of the economy, because what you're doing is you're repeating the claims that are being made by people in the opposition, and I'll explain to you why.
Okay.
Is it true that our forex cover has grown to nearly 6.5 months cover? It is now $15 billion.
Yes.
Right? Is it also true that last year in 2025, IMD competitive index, you can Google it up.
Yeah.
IMD ranked Kenya as the most competitive economy for investing in Africa. It was number 59, but number 1 in Africa. IMD, you can check it out.
Yeah.
Is it also true that last year, our foreign direct investment more than doubled the position that was in 2022? It was, I think, $3.2 billion FDI. Now, do businesses close and leave the country? That is true.
Yeah.
That is normal. But there are also businesses that are coming and establishing their base in this country. The argument you're using is like saying every day there are people dying, but also there are people who are being born every single day, and the people who are being born are more than the ones who die.
Yeah.
That is the truth. If you look at the economy objectively,
Yes.
our inflation has stabilized today, right? I am telling you, our foreign direct investment has doubled the position it was in 2022. If you look at all those, Nairobi Stock Exchange, why are people investing in Nairobi Stock Exchange? It was one of the best performing in Africa and in the world. Why? You see, we should not use subjective political conversations as an objective assessment of the performance of the government. What I would want you to come and tell me is that our shilling, which was on a free fall in 2022,
23?
At 23, is at a worse position today. Is it?
No, it's not. It's
It
come
is
down.
not.
Yeah.
So what single metric are you using to make this conclusion that our economy is worse off than it was? That is a conversation that politicians are having, understandably so.
Yes.
Because they are saying that they want to convince voters. I understand. I have mentioned to you that we came in 2022, we were just coming from the downturn of COVID, right? The COVID situation contracted our economy. People underestimate the ability for an economy to recover and actually perform at its optimum. Now, the measures that the government has put in place over the last 4 years have actually put us to where we are today. This is why the president said yesterday in a special address to the nation that we've stabilized the economy. Now, our next step is to say, how can we expand the economy?
Yes.
How can we take ourselves to an upper middle income country? Remember, Vision 2030 envisaged that Kenya would become an upper middle income country by its end in 2030. Today, we are halfway that. We are not even halfway that. So it is safe to conclude that we might not get there in the next 2 or 3 years.
Yes.
So what the president is saying, we are not saying that Vision 2030 did not work. But we are saying, let us have a conversation as a nation on how to accelerate our growth to solve the problems that you've mentioned, the problems of unemployment, the problems of opportunity for our people. How do we solve these things? And back again to the conversation you had about Singapore.
Yes.
Singapore, it was not just about fighting corruption or good governance. It was critical. It was there. It was not just about efficient government. It was also about education. Education was key. Let me ask you, are you aware that Lee Kuan Yew at some point insisted that the people of Singapore must wear white. Do you remember that? Why did he say that? Because he wanted the culture of Singapore to change. Why did he want it to change? White was to show purity. Yeah. It is not one thing that made Singapore what it is today. If you listen to the speech of the president yesterday, he said three things, and which I want us really to focus on. He said, we have had three opportunities over the last 60 years to take over as an economy. We did not. The first, between the 1960s and up to 1980s, countries like South Korea, which were at par with us, overtook us. Then he said that the second phase, between 1980, going all the way to the late 80s, the next phase was China. China had a GDP per capita of about 190, 200 in 1980. Kenya had a GDP per capita of 450. Kenya was more than double the GDP per capita of China. China, from that point, from December 1979, what did China do? They opened up the economy, did exactly what Singapore did. They opened up the economy. They allowed foreign firms to set up base in China to produce stuff there. They worked on their education. And today, China, let me explain this. It's very important. China was able to move 800 million people out of their 1 billion people at the time, out of what is called extreme poverty, which is subsistence on less than $2 a day. That is what China managed to do. Again, around early 1990s, there was Vietnam. The president mentioned Vietnam. Vietnam started the same thing. Vietnam does apparels and all these things in their country for export markets. Started with us 1990s. Today, Vietnam is $3,000. The GDP per capita, we are still at 2,400. They have overtaken us. The president mentioned a country that many will squirm in their seats, Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe, which has been in turmoil for the last decade or so, today its GDP capita is about 15% or 20% higher than Kenya's. So the president is asking a legitimate question. How come we have had these opportunities to take off, we have not taken off? And he's saying we have an opportunity today. Why? Because Africa is the next frontier of growth, global growth. 9 of the fastest growing economies around the world are in Africa. We have to take advantage of this opportunity to align ourselves with this wave of growth, to ensure that we expand our economy in such a manner that we create opportunities for all our young people. You asked me a question before we came on air. Are we growing enough to create opportunities for young people? The answer is simple. The more reason why we need to have this conversation about accelerating the growth of our economy, the expansion of our economy, so that we can create opportunities for our people. Because if we don't do that, we will continue having this problem of goonism, this problem of idleness among young people, underemployment. The president is saying, we cannot leave this to chance. We cannot leave this to politicians alone. We need to have a conversation as citizens of this country, a conversation that is second only to the promulgation of the Constitution.
That conversation should start on the 12th of August, 2026, as was said by the president. What, in your view, does that conversation look like?
So first of all, the conversation does not begin on the 12th of August.
Just going by,
Yeah. But let me give you the context.
Okay, yes.
If you have listened to the president, he has been very consistent. We need to move to first world within our lifetime. He's been consistently on this message for that same simple reason. What he's saying is that the Constitution gives us certain imperatives, socio-economic rights, health. Highest, the wording of the Constitution is highest attainable standards of health, right? That's what the Constitution says. Housing, water, and nutrition. So what the president is saying, that's what the constitution says. How do we give effect to this? So the president is saying, we have sort of, the constitution settled the issue of politics and governance, and the legislations that have subsequently been passed have put that into effect. Is asking, how then do we give effect to these social and economic rights? How do we ensure that these are not just words in the constitution, but they become reality? Now, he's saying, let us open up this conversation. Kenyans have ideas. Kenyans know what we can do. They have the expertise. Let us, the faith-based community, civil society, the business community, political parties, the young people of this country, let's come together and be part of this conversation of shaping the next phase of this country, and not leave it only to the government to say, this is where we are going. But the conversation is not beginning then. The president told us in the State of the Nation that just for us to be a competitive economy, we need to do at least three things. One, we need to grow expand our installed energy capacity to at least 10,000 megawatts, to build dams. And what was the third one? I'm forgetting. But the president was pretty clear that we need to accelerate the investment in our economy to give us the capability to move into that first world.
Okay. One of our biggest strengths as a country is that we are a tentatively young nation.
Yes.
And of course, as a continent, as Africa. Now, Ruto announced that nationwide public participation launch on that 12th August date. That's why I'm using that specific date.
Yes.
Now, when you're looking at the recent attempts by the government and the president to include young people into this national conversation, they haven't gone too well. I remember back then we tried to set an X space where Ruto invited everybody. Didn't go too well. It was all about bashing, noise. Nothing has really gone too well. And it shows you the gap that exists between the head of state and a number of young people. So how differently are you planning to handle this relaunch or this new call for public participation to have this conversation and ensure these young people who do not see eye to eye or are probably imagining the worst thing that has happened to this country is President William Ruto are incorporated, and they feel that whatever they say is not just rubber stamped.
I mean, the president was pretty clear yesterday. He said, every Kenyan citizen has a stake in this country. And his message was that every citizen will be invited to participate. We cannot anticipate that some of our young people will not take part. I believe that the young people who genuinely want to see this country move from where it is to what it could be, a better country for everyone, will be open to participating and give their ideas and help shape this new future that Kenya wants to be.
So the other question is, do you have any specific metrics that you'll use to ensure that whatever any other stakeholder, from church members to anybody who's invited, do you have specific metrics that you're going to use to convince Kenyans that what what Allan has said has been taken into consideration?
I mean, look at how did we come up with a new constitution? There was a steering team that went across the country and engaged all stakeholders, irrespective of their stature. They went to the young people, they went to the faith-based community, civil society. Everyone in the society was invited to take part to this. It will be the same process. I'm not saying exactly the same process, because there will be a team that will be steering and therefore will come up with the execution mechanics. All I am saying at this particular point is that the president is keen to see Kenyans themselves take charge of this process. And therefore, Kenyan includes everybody, including you, Allan. You have a say. You have this podcast. You're conversing with the citizens of this country. If you have something, if you have an idea, a view that will take Kenya forward, you're so much welcome. I don't have the details
Yes.
because the announcement was just made yesterday.
Yeah.
There's a team. That day is the launch of that conversation.
Yeah.
And then the team will come together, the steering team, which will now convene and now take the process forward. They will give particulars or details of how they will go about it. But at this particular point, the understanding is very clear. We want every Kenyan to be part of this conversation because every Kenyan has a stake in the future of this country.
From your own perspective, the Constitution is a living document.
Correct.
Not all the stipulations are cast in stone, meaning it could be altered at any time. We are well in year probably 13
Yes.
or probably, around there. We're well in a couple of years, over a decade in our new constitution. Do you think it's an opportune time for a referendum, especially now that we are welcoming this conversation? Do you think it's an opportune time for also Kenyans to start imagining that maybe this is time for us to have that conversation?
I wouldn't have an opinion on that
Yeah.
because, I mean, I don't know what Kenyans will say. So I wouldn't try and interpret that Kenyans will say we go to a referendum or we want to amend the constitution.
From your own personal perspective.
I don't think I have an opinion on that. My view is that we need to complete first this task that the president is saying is urgent.
Yeah.
How do we give effect to social and economic rights, health, housing, water, and sanitation, food, nutrition, and all that stuff?
Yes.
How do we give effect to them? I think that's the conversation, and that one is well covered. I think I forgot one thing when I was talking about the three priorities. I think there was the roads and the roads and infrastructure, the connectivity. I think that's a key priority for a modern country. And then, of course, there's energy, and then there's irrigation. I think the president was pretty clear.
Yeah.
We need to get this right. And if we get this right, we begin that journey towards what you call Singapore. But I think it's an upper middle income country, the way South Korea is today, and the way China is today.
I mean, it's a good conversation.
Yeah.
Nobody refutes that. And if it could actually lead to something substantial, I believe many Kenyans would be for it. But I'm keen to understand how we are going to bring everybody on board. Because right now, yes, we have the broad-based arrangement.
Yes.
Where the president is working with a certain section of people, but we have a very big chunk of people in the opposition. So in your thinking, how does State House plan to bring all these ideas together in one place so that the blueprint that we come up with is not discarded by the incoming administration in the coming years? Because you've heard the opposition and these other people say, when we get in, we're going to do away with this. We're going to do away with this. So is there a plan to ensure that this blueprint is not discarded by incoming administrations?
So that is exactly the diagnosis that the president of the Republic of Kenya has made. And he has come to the conclusion that to insulate the future of our country from the holders of the office at a particular point, whether it's now or 20 years from now, is that we must have, just like we have a constitution that guides us on what we do, we must have a development charter. A development charter that is owned by the people of Kenya. The people of Kenya themselves pronounce themselves on what they want as development for their country. Once that happens, then our democracy, our politics becomes a competition about ideas on how to take us to that destination faster, more efficiently, and in a way that brings everyone together, rather than being left to the government of the day just to decide what it wants, a disconnect from the bigger vision of where the country wants to go.
I understand we are in a political season, and of course we're having different shifts and different moves, and that is expected in a political season. But when you're looking at a country and a space where we've had people who are close confidants to the head of state, who've probably have exited the camp and are not seeing eye to eye with him and are constantly speaking against what the head of state is saying, are there any sort of plans to counter this? Because I'm of the idea that when you're having people who are close to the head of state, yes, it's a political season. Do you think it works against what you're trying to achieve here? Because they're the ones who are dealing with the people down there, telling them this and this. Do you foresee this coming to fruition with ease?
I'll tell you the following.
Yeah.
People disagreeing is part of normal human relations. I don't even imagine for a moment that the president spends sleepless nights bothered about what the people who used to work with him and have since moved on to do other things say about him or his administration. I think what might keep the president up at night is he delivering on his mandate. The president wants to deliver on every promise that he made to Kenyans. That is what bothers the president, and that is what he is focused on. I don't think the president spends his time asking what is so-and-so saying about me and what should I do about it. No. If the president delivers on his mandate, then what the people say, the people that were his friends are now saying all manner of things about him, is inconsequential. And I think that's ultimately what happens in life. There are people you used to be together and you've disagreed along the way. They will say what they want to say about you. Does it stop you from progressing to your mission? It doesn't, unless you give it due attention. The president, from what I see, is not least bothered by what those people are saying. But the president is very keen on fulfilling his mandate to the people of Kenya, to the extent that he's confident that if I go to the people of Kenya next year and tell them that this is the mandate you gave me, this is the scorecard, they will respond accordingly.
Do you think that's enough? Do you think come 2027, as you've said, the vision is to have people compete from a perspective of ideas? Do you think come 2027, the majority of the voters' minds would have shifted to actually interrogating what the president has done and not necessarily aligning with campaign rhetoric? Do you think it will be enough for the president to say, I've done A, B, and C?
I mean, whether it is enough or not, the president is a man on a mission. And the mission is to transform Kenya. And he is providing leadership. Whether is enough, the people will make that call at the right time. Right now, what the president is focused on is delivering on his mandate. So, did he promise to do the following? And is he doing it? I think that's what keeps the president engaged every single day. What other people are saying or whether it will be enough, it is the people of Kenya that will decide.
Okay, Peter, as we're winding down, if you had one sort of policy or institutional reform under this new conversation that we're having, what would it be?
I think the president mentioned yesterday that we need to have a development charter as a country. A development charter that is not left to the whims of politicians or any other specific group. Kenyans must own it. And what the president is proposing to the country is that we need to realize that for us to get from where we are to the next step, we must all own our destination. And we have to decide what is that destination. So the invitation by the president for this conversation, which is to answer your question, is that let us deviate from saying that's a government issue. And let us be owners of our future as a republic. Because that's the only stage where we will all feel we have skin in the game. At this point, everybody is blaming the other. But the president is saying, put your skin in the game. Let's do this thing together. Bring your ideas. Let us develop this. Let us design this development charter.
Yeah.
He called it the most consequential conversation
Yeah.
after the promulgation of the Constitution. And he did that for a reason. Because this is something that cannot be left to chance. If we have 1 million people on average getting to the job market every year, and we are creating opportunities as little as 10% of it, then you see a problem is compounding. And to solve that problem, you need to ensure that the economy is generating sufficient opportunities for the young people.
Okay.
And that is what, I'll give you an example. When you study, there's something called the population dividend. What does it mean? A population dividend means that the number of people working, the people between 18 and 64, is significantly higher than the number of people who are depending on those who are working. So the people between, let's say, 0 and 17 or 0 and 15, and then 65 and above. What China did to bring down, to lift some people, to lift 800 million out of extreme poverty, is that their dependency ratio dropped over a period of 10 years by 50%. Today, even you at your level, there are people who are depending on you.
Yeah.
Whatever resources you have, there are people who are depending on you. If we could reduce that, then we begin to have an economy that is helping people live fulfilled lives and fulfill their potential. So, the president is saying, this is a conversation for everyone. He could as well have said, this is my vision. Vision 2030 was actually a government vision with a few experts.
Yeah.
But now we are saying, let us do something that is anchored on the people themselves and where they want the country to go.
Peter, lovely conversation. Well, we've come to the very end of today's conversation pertaining to where the country is headed to. The head of state giving his State of the Nation address and basically telling Kenyans, we don't want this to be a government initiative. On the 12th of August, you'll have an opportunity from that date moving forward to give your sentiments. Come in, share what you feel needs to be done for us to move forward. That was Peter Opondo, who's the president's speech writer at the Executive Office of the President, just sharing his sentiments on the same. As usual, it's been a lovely conversation. I'll be seeing you when you see me. I'm Allan Owino. Do have yourselves a lovely one.
Brought to you by CH Studios, creating content that connects.